What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Garage Denali. So if you are watching this video, I'm assuming you've seen the part 1, which is removing the driver's side cylinder bank 2 valve cover to do the valve cover gasket job. As you can see right here, we got our nice new valve cover gasket right there. You see that orange line? It looks pretty good. You can see it right through there as well. So I'm assuming you've already seen that part, because this here is part 2, which is doing the passenger side valve cover gasket. And this will be the cylinder bank 1 passenger valve cover gasket DIY. So some people are saying that it's, it looks a little more difficult to do on this side. Some people are saying you have to hoist the engine, remove an engine mount, remove transmission mounts, get the engine to tilt essentially in order to get this cover off. Some people are saying you have to remove the footwell fender liner right here, or even the blower motor housing. So I'm going to see if I can get this off just by removing the ignition coils to gain some more clearance, and possibly disconnecting those two coolant lines right there. There shouldn't be any coolant flowing through them. At least I don't anticipate it, because if you squeeze it, you don't really hear anything. So I guess that might be a separate issue, because you're not supposed to have air in your cooling system. But regardless, adding coolant is not the biggest job in the world, so we can do that if we have to get those two hoses out of the way. But essentially, we're going to try to get this valve cover to come straight up as opposed to coming sideways. So this video will show you how to do that. So just like our other video, we had a series of 8mm bolts holding the cover on. So it's same deal, just like last time. We got 11 of these total bolts. There is one that is a different size, I believe, but I will let you know in the video as we progress if that is the case. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So first things first, we're just going to get our wiring out of the way here. Vacuum line right up here. These are your fuel lines here. So some people are saying you have to remove these. I'm going to try to do this job without having to do that. Alright, so the first thing that I did here was I got my blower motor resistor out. This is the connector. This is the resistor itself, because we want as much room here as we can get. So go ahead and get this out of the way and just put it somewhere else. And get your connections undone for your coil packs as well as your fuel injectors. And then you're going to have to wrestle with this wire a little bit with this harness, but do your best. And then once you do that, you'll be able to have access to your 8 bolts, or your 11 bolts, 8mm bolts. Alright, so once you've wrestled with all that, get this wire loom out of the way, unplug all your connections, and get this harness out of the way. You're going to need a little bit of leverage to get it out. We can go ahead and start removing our 11 8mm bolts. So once again, lay these out exactly how you pull them out. Alright, so we got 10 of these bolts out. The 11th one is here in the corner, and this one's kind of difficult to get to. So do your best to get it started with the ratchet, and then you're going to have to get it off by hand. Now at this point, our valve cover is ready to come off. So this might get tricky here, but we're going to try to get it off best way we can. Alright, so that was difficult, I will say. You have to be very careful to wash this fuel line here. But what I did was I removed the 4 ignition coils, and that was able to give me enough leverage, and bending these 2 hoses here was able to give me enough leverage to get the valve cover off. So as you can see, this is our second one. So we're going to go ahead and get this cleaned up, get the new valve cover on, and then we will go ahead and install it. Okay, so same ordeal just like last time. We're going to go ahead and pull off this old valve cover, clean it up, and get the new one on. Okay, once you got your old gasket off, toss it aside, and we're going to go ahead and start cleaning this up. So now at this step, we're going to go right in here, and we're going to go ahead and clean the cylinder head, prep that for the valve cover to be put back on. So we got some grime here, some debris we want to clean and be careful of. So we already got a couple things in here, so we're going to try to clean them out, and we'll just do our best. So once that is done and you've got your cylinder head cleaned up and you've also got your valve cover cleaned up, we're going to go ahead and install our new valve cover gasket. So once again, this only goes on one way. So this will go on like this. Just take your time with this and make sure it's seated nicely and all the grooves for the grommets. Just take your time. No rush. The valve cover gasket is already molded and bent to the shape that it needs to be. So this will go on pretty much perfectly. So just get it on, nice and even. Once you do that, we're going to go ahead and take our little washers here. And we're going to go ahead and pop these back on. Now we're going to go ahead and clean our valve cover gasket one more time, and then we will go ahead and get this installed. Okay guys, so there is our cylinder bank 1 passenger side valve cover with a brand new gasket. You can see just how good that looks. So now we're going to go ahead and get it reinstalled back on top of the valve, or the cylinder head. So I went ahead and I got the cylinder head as cleaned as I can. Try your best, doesn't have to be 100% immaculate, but you do want to do a pretty good job because you're putting a brand new gasket on there, so we want a nice tight seal. So now you're going to go ahead and take your valve cover and you are going to go ahead and pop it on. So this might be a little tricky because it was tricky when we were getting it off. So getting it back on should be, we're going to try our best. So as you can see, what I'm doing here is I'm feeding it through here just like that. And once you get back here, get the wiring harness right over it. Alright, we got it on. So it is tight, but as you can see, all I removed were the 8 connectors to the fuel injectors as well as the coil packs. I removed this wire here for my blower motor resistor. I removed this connector here, I removed this connector here, got the wiring harness out of the way, and with enough bending of hoses, of course you want to be careful, you can get it back on and off without having to go to a mechanic. So now we're going to get our 11 bolts right back in and start to get this hand tightened. Words of advice when doing this job: it might not be a bad idea to wash your engine bay. Get as much of the debris, gunk, grime, loose dirt, get as much of this off as you can when you do this job. Plus, a nice engine, a clean engine is nice to work on anyway, so just some suggestions for you guys. Alright guys, once you're done that, go ahead and plug everything back in. All your connectors, or actually before you do that, I removed my ignition coils. So I have to go back and add those. Okay, once you got your ignition coils back on, go ahead and plug in your fuel injectors and your coils. And last but not least, plug your blower motor resistor back in. So for this, all you do is just wrap it around these 2 coolant hoses, and then this plugs in like so. I know it's hard to see, but the tab goes to the bottom, just like that. Okay, once you hear a click, you can relax, because you just did the valve cover gasket job on your Ford Panther platform vehicle 4.6 liter modular V8. So that right there is how you do it, guys. that's it. So, alright guys, so there you go. That is part 2 of the Ford Panther platform vehicle, 4.6 liter modular V8 valve cover gasket DIY. So as you can see, it was kind of invasive. It wasn't too terrible, but it wasn't as easy as an air filter, so it's going to require a little bit of work, but it's not the worst. So right now I'm just letting it warm up a bit. I just want to see if there's any leaks. I want to make sure everything is okay, so that's something you want to do. So engine's cold, so it's idling a little higher right now, but it'll get there. But yeah, some tips that you guys might want to keep in mind. You might want to consider washing your engine bay. That could help you when doing this job right here. And then you want to use a torque wrench. You want to get your bolts down to 10 or so pound-feet of torque. I got a little bit of oil burning off right there on the exhaust manifold, so that's what all that white smoke is, so that's going to disappear. But beyond that, other things you want to consider besides those two, you might want to do this right before you do an oil change, because that way if you get any debris, any gunk inside the cylinder head there, inside the valve cover gasket, at least it'll come right out. So just some things you want to keep in mind. But overall, it's not too bad. So, as you can see, I didn't have to remove any of the fuel lines. I didn't have to remove the air conditioning, blower motor resistor housing right there. I didn't have to remove the brake booster like a lot of other tutorials show. So, I guess it depends on the model year, depending on how your engine is laid out. But I have an 06. This is a 2006, so this is how you do it on, you know, the mid-2000s model years. So yeah, I'm just waiting for all that smoke to clear up, because it is oil that seeped down right on the exhaust manifold, and that's about it. So that is how you do a valve cover DIY on your Ford Crown Victoria. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and the last video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Please check out my page at Garage Denali on Instagram. Comment, rate, subscribe. Thank you very much, and take care.